Dear friends, soften your butter, activate your yeast, and marvel at the rapidity with which your perfect loaf disappears into the yawning maws of your ravenous in-laws.
Because it's time to talk Tull to me.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am Omen Sade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Momes.
And this is Talk Tull to Me.
A lazy afternoon of baking, where Nick and I combine the flour of prog rock, the egg whites of jazz, and the finest Scottish lard, bake for 30 minutes at gas mark 4, and ultimately pass out on the couch in a full Jethro Tull-induced carbs coma.
You can cover it in butter, you can cover it in jam, you can cover it in Marmite, or you can eat it straight. No matter how you consume Tull, it is always 100% good for you.
Yes. An important part of a healthy breakfast.
Glass of orange juice, glass of coffee, slice of Tull.
That's right. So, Nick, here we are. We're back, aren't we?
Here we are again. We are back with a brand new album. We are on to album number 6.
Wow. I can't believe it's been 6 years.
That's what it feels like. I have certainly aged. I have 6 years worth of gray hair at this point.
Yes.
Before, however, we get into this beautiful, beautiful album, this work of art,
yes,
we have a little bit of something from Mary, I believe, don't we?
Oh, what's this? Oh, thank you, Mary. Thank you very much.
My vacation was cancelled.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm really sorry to hear that.
I'm going to go soak me feet in the river.
That's one way to do it, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah.
Whatever works. All right, here we have an email.
Oh boy, an email.
Your emails, sir.
Yes, here we are, an email fresh off the presses. This is a scholarly type of email written by that gentleman and learned fellow, Captain Fleshy Boy the Third.
The third.
Part of the long and noble line of Fleshy Boys.
All with distinguished places in the military.
Indeed. Subject line, hello, comma, my good momes. Message, hi Nick and Omen. I've been a fan for a few months now and really love what you've been doing. I just left a review on iTunes to show my gratitude to you boys. Keep it up, you crazy momes.
Thank you.
In one of your recent casts, you two were discussing Ian's unique acoustic guitar style, likening it to Nick Drake, an apt comparison. Mm-hmm. Likewise, I thought I'd bring to your attention, if you didn't know him already, the progressive folk artist Roy Harper. Harper is an interesting and eccentric character who, despite not garnering much fame outside a niche fan base, influenced some of the most well-known classic rock/prog acts of the late 60s and 70s. He has collaborated with Jimmy Page, provided the lead vocals for Pink Floyd's Have a Cigar, and was name-dropped in the title of the Led Zeppelin song Hats Off to Harper. Most notably, our boy Ian Anderson said Roy was his primary influence as an acoustic guitarist and songwriter. It seems that Ian and Harper both got their start in Blackpool around the same time, as Ian once reportedly stated that the only reason he originally left Blackpool was because Harper did.
That's Ian Anderson reading someone else's quote about him.
Yes, exactly. Also, Harper's guitar style has been compared to Nick Drake's, who Harper would play and associate with. It seems that Nick Drake and Harper drew from similar musical sources, later inspiring artists like Ian. Anyway, I just thought I'd share this equally brilliant and underrated artist with some fellow Tullskulls. Your guys' work is great. I really appreciate it. Your pal, Captain Fleshy Boy III.
Thank you, Captain Fleshy Boy. I know of Roy Harper because of the Ballad of Jethro Tull.
Oh, interesting.
The book that just came out, he mentioned Roy Harper a couple of times in that book. And because of that, I kind of poked around and listened to some of his stuff. I haven't gone too crazy on it, but...
After the Captain's Message, I listened to a couple of tracks from Roy Harper, and it's true, you really can feel the similarity between Ian's guitar playing and his, that heavily rhythmic chorded undergarment, I want to say, with the
I'm wearing one.
Underpinning with the really lyrical melody lines being played over at the same time higher up on the fretboard.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic. If you are not familiar with Roy Harper, I suggest you go have a listen. And thank you, Captain Fleshy Boy III, for your delightfully scholarly email.
Perfect. Thank you. And for the review, for that matter.
And for the review. Yes, you can all take a page out of the book of Captain Fleshy Boy III.
How do you think he reached the heights of power?
I mean, I assume he started out as cabin Fleshy Boy III.
Yeah.
Worked his way up to midshipman Fleshy Boy III.
Yeah.
Someday he'll be Admiral Fleshy Boy III.
It would be an honor to be at that ceremony to honor him.
Indeed.
But yeah, it was by leaving reviews for podcasts. That was what I was getting at.
Ah, I see. Ruined your joke.
Yep. It wasn't even really a joke. It was just bad all around.
So, without further ado, Nick.
Omen.
Are we ready to jump into the next Jethro Tull album?
Yeah, I think that it is time. We're not going to get too deep into it just yet. We're going to do a little early info, and we'll spread it out a little bit more along the episodes because each track is going to be so beefy. So this week, I just really wanted to start with the standard quote from Ian about the album that we have in the back of this wonderful Jethro Tull Prague magazine here.
Hey, Nick, have we said what the album is?
Oh my goodness. It is Ian Anderson Sings Childhood Classics, Volume 3.
Oh, that's what I listen to go to sleep.
That's right. Yeah, it's just flute and grumbling.
Yeah.
We are starting Passion Play, or I'm sorry, A Passion Play.
A Passion Play, the second in a row of massive concept album.
Yeah, the next in line,
works.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's hear what Mr. Anderson has to say about A Passion Play.
All right. Quote, "The Step Too Far album. We decamped at the Chateau d'Ulreville in France, where Elton had recorded and had a rotten time. Technical issues, gastric bugs. We just wanted to go home. So we did, and had a frantic few weeks of writing a new album. 2 pieces made it onto the War Child album, and 1 or 2 morphed into something more sophisticated, but they never came to light on that album. That album, I'm assuming, is A Passion Play.
Yes, I would think so.
Steve Harris from Iron Maiden loves A Passion Play. I'm glad someone liked it." So there is an obvious weight that this album comes with.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't know any of the history about Passion Play before this magazine.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you know, I didn't really either. So it's interesting to note that there is sort of a ghost album in between Thick as a Brick and Passion Play, and that is the recording attempt that was made at the Chateau d'Hérouville. And d'Hérouville.
But I don't think that's necessarily accurate, because if that album had succeeded, a passion play wouldn't exist. I think it's one or the other.
Absolutely. Well, that's why it's a ghost. That's why it's a ghost of an album. It's an album that died, and they were like, well, we're going to have another kid, so... but that one died.
Got really dark.
Yeah. Oh, so then there was a much later album released, which was entitled...
Oh, Chateau Disaster, yeah.
Chateau Disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, which is basically all the tracks that they managed to salvage from that time, mastered them as much as they could with what they had, and they put them out there. And there is a lot...
In 1988.
Yeah. And there is a lot of the same sound of what you're going to hear in War Child, actually.
Right, because as Ian was saying, some of the stuff that they did record in France ended up on War Child.
Mm. Yeah. A lot of the themes, too.
Right. But what we're about to listen to was recorded at Morgan Studios in London during March of 1973.
Right. Right.
So although it has French provenance in a way, it took root and grew in England, much like Sir Lancelot.
Well, the chateau wasn't in France. It was in Switzerland.
See, Nick, this is...
For very specific reasons, which we will get into.
This is why we don't trust the Europeans. You know, where are the borders? What is Switzerland, as it were?
It's a country.
Oh, well, thank you for clearing that up. So in terms of the personnel, it is unchanged from Thick as a Brick. We have Ian Anderson on lead vocals, flute, acoustic guitar, soprano, and sopratino saxophone. We have Martin Lancelot Barr on the electric guitar. We have John Evan with backing vocals, piano, organ, and synthesizer. And Jeffrey Hammond, bass guitar, spoken word. We'll get to that later. And Barrymore Barlow on drums, percussion, timpani, glockenspiel, and marimba. And, of course, we have the indomitable Dee Palmer bringing in the exquisite strings arrangements.
Indomitable, inestimable, incorrigible.
Terry Ellis, the producer, same as it ever was. And off we pop.
Off we pop.
We are about to pop off on a passion play.
Just a note on Jeffrey Hammond being spoken word. Remember, he was the spoken word in Thick as a Brick as well.
Yeah, so he's had practice now. He's got a taste for it, and now he's come back for more.
His spoken word part is much bigger in this one too.
That's what they say, Nick. You know, if you give a bassist a cookie, next he'll want to record an entire absurdist children's story on the next album.
That was actually my favorite children's book as a child.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's really good.
Don't feed the bassist.
Don't ever. They just keep coming back.
Would you like to hear a bassist joke?
If this is the one that you told me...
Never mind.
A month ago.
Never mind.
So just a super quick, like, one sentence overview of a passion play before we start.
Please.
It is the concept, the theme is the spiritual journey of a man named Ronnie Pilgrim.
What does that mean? Why don't we find out together?
We will start finding out when we listen to Ronnie Pilgrim's funeral, A Winter's Morning in the Cemetery.
Let's have a listen.
Let us.
Well, Nick.
That was the first 9 minutes that we just listened to. The first 9 minutes of A Passion Play, side 1.
Yeah.
All right. So you said you've listened to this one before. This is not like living in the past.
That's correct.
But you haven't been super familiar with it.
This is not an album to which I have listened a lot, yeah.
Okay. So, knowing what we know going into it, knowing that it was, I guess, for lack of a better term, thrown together,
Yeah.
and that it was a follow-up to their first number one, which was a huge concept album.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on this first portion?
I mean, really, my first thought is yowza. Wow.
It's like good yowza, though, right?
Oh, very good yowza, yeah. You know, it's funny. I watch a lot of baking shows, Nick.
You don't have
And
to
there's
say
a
that
thing-
with shame. That sounded...
I didn't.
Okay,
I didn't.
Heard a little
That
shame.
was pride. Let me try again. I watch a lot of baking shows, Nick.
There you go. Yeah.
And, you know, there's a thing that happens where the baker will sometimes come up and say, here's my dish. It didn't go the way I wanted to, and I was really rushed for time, and I don't know. I don't really like, I don't know, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then that affects the judge's decision. Whereas even if the baker is sweating bullets and thinks it's a disaster, if they go up and say, this is what I made,
Yeah.
then the judges can start judging it from a more neutral place. And
Yeah.
sometimes they can have a success that otherwise they would have tainted. That's sort of how I feel about that. You know, it sounds like there was a lot of negative critical response to the album. It sounds like Ian, in his quote, certainly has some bitter feelings toward it.
Right.
The fact that they, after a massive, probably costly disaster on the continent of recording, they jammed this out in a couple of weeks. Listening to it, I don't get any of that. I just
No.
hear a remarkably cogent, very heady, but very well sculpted and presented piece of music so far.
Yeah. I've always really dug this album. Just, I want to go back real quick. You said it was not well received critically. This was Tull's second number one. I think early on in the Thick as a Brick albums, I said that was their one and only. That's not true. Apparently, this hit number one in the States,
Yes, that's true.
which I have to say, it was clearly riding on the coattails of how successful Thick was.
Right.
Not to say it doesn't warrant it, it doesn't deserve it, but it
Oh, no, I
certainly
think it
had
d- I think it does.
a little,
Momentum.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But it's, you know, even when the public really likes something, it can be very disheartening when critics or maybe other musicians, other artists dislike something.
Sure. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they were still babies. They were still young. So of course everything was
Yes.
they weren't wizened and hardened yet. Any more than Ian actually is now, you know. I mean, he was
Right,
He
exactly.
was then, but he wasn't a walking callus at that point.
He was pre-wizened.
Yeah.
We may be witnessing his wizening.
Neither of those have H's in them. I don't know why.
Yeah, you know, gotta get him where you can.
Yep. Common phrase. Yep.
So yes, this is probably the most heady and conceptual stuff that we've heard from Jethro Tull. And I think that the big difference between this and Thick as a Brick is that the whole conceit of Thick as a Brick was, well, it's a joke anyway, so what does it matter? I think that this doesn't have that mask.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I think that exposes it to a lot more critique but at the same time presents potentially a much more profound listening experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for those who do want to listen to it for that experience, it's not terribly accessible for the casual listener.
It's not dinner party music.
If this were Tull's sophomore album and not their sophomore concept album, I'm not sure how well they would have lasted, how much longer they would have lasted.
Yeah. I mean, thus far, it is reading more as sort of performance art for the ear than rock and roll.
And it was in concert, too.
Yeah.
They had 3 videos that they had to show to kind of to make the concept make sense, to give it context. So if as a band you need visuals to really hammer home your point, you're straying into difficult territory if you want to keep your I just want to listen to rock and roll audience.
Yes, exactly. It demands a lot more from the audience, but apparently there was enough of an audience, at least in the States, to step up to that challenge and really listen to it, probably with the aid of some, mild psychotropic enhancements.
That being said, we do have to take into consideration the fact that an album hits number 1 based upon sales.
Right.
People really dug Thick as a Brick, so they bought Passion Play.
Right, and it's not like they could preview it like we can now.
Exactly. So they think, oh, this album was great. Let me buy their next one. Maybe they listened to the first half of Passion Play and that's it.
It's possible. I'm sure some people did, and I'm sure that some people, really, really loved it. I suspect that it was a bit more polarizing.
Yes.
I think with an album like this, you really either connect with it or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, musically, let's break down a little bit of what we have in this first 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Which is a lot. We've got a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, what's the first sound that we hear?
It is, I'm not sure what it actually is, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Ronnie Pilgrim's heartbeat.
Yeah, I would say it's a heartbeat.
It's a heartbeat. I don't know what they're using to create that sound, but it's a heartbeat.
Could be a heart.
Ian Anderson's heart?
Mellotron.
Filled with boiler fluid?
Yes, exactly.
I don't care if you're a rock and roll star, you'll always have boiler fluid in your veins. Is that why you don't feel well, Dad? That's why. Dad, that's a serious medical condition.
You'll be dead by 30. If it was good enough for Grandpa Anderson, it was good enough for you.
You told me the transfusions were to make me healthy. Healthy like a boiler. So it is the track. The track starts out Nick. With that heartbeat as a slow opener that slowly rises in pitch.
Yeah, it morphs a bit,
enough.
and then it is accompanied by a kind of overdrive electric soundscape.
Yeah, a really distorted guitar.
Yes,
that
and
really reedy saxophone too.
Right, and then peeping through that, I believe we have a little bit of flute playing that kind of country air.
Yeah, I think the sax and the flute trade off, probably because Ian was playing them.
Yeah, and then after that, we eventually find ourselves in a march for a little bit. So there's this huge sort of like very, very abstract heartbeat montage that resolves suddenly into a march.
Mm-hmm.
That goes on for maybe 20 seconds. And then the march kind of falls apart a little bit into a fairly irregular time signature.
Yeah.
Experience. There's some 3/4 in there for sections, but then there's some, I think, stuff that's trading off between 3/4 and 2/4, sort of a combined 5/4 signature, which is really, really weird and very unsettling, but very, very evocative and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, the distorted instruments and the really curious kind of cacophonous, distorted choices are made exponentially more off-putting by this time signature or these time signatures.
Yeah, you want to ground yourself in a regular time signature, and so whenever an irregular time signature is used, it makes it hard to dance to say it really simply.
Yeah.
But it forces you to listen is the other thing. And I agree
Right.
that it's uncomfortable. But given the subject material, I think it's appropriately uncomfortable.
Sure, absolutely.
This whole section, Nick, to sort of break a little bit our standard format and talk a little bit about the themes already. And this is all pre-lyrics. But
Right.
when I was listening to this just now, and of course it was influenced by us reading out what the concept of the album is, which is sort of very useful. This whole section felt to me like a life flashing before someone's eyes.
Musically,
And
you're saying.
Musically, yeah, and that irregularity and those quick bumps of sound that come out of nowhere. Those all that all lends itself for me to this feeling of like a sped up tape of someone's life played at a very fast pace.
Yeah.
With all these disjointed images coming at you, and it's overwhelming and it's emotional.
See, that's interesting because the way I always pictured it was that heartbeat those heartbeats are the last heartbeats of Ronnie Pilgrim, and
Sure.
all of that instrumentation leading up to the lyrics is his kind of like out-of-body experience of watching everything happen until he hits the funeral, and then he narrates from there.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense as well. I mean, it sort of could be either, and those
Exactly.
those are similar. It's that end of life. It's the transition between life and death.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is no, I mean, unless we get Ian on the record, there is no right answer. It's however we interpret it, particularly because it's just instrumentation. It's whatever it makes us feel as individuals.
But I think it's quite clearly, the transition between life and death.
Yeah.
Whether it's before, whether it's the last moment of him being alive or the first moment after he's dead, that's sort of up to interpretation. But I think it's very effective at conveying the story of death and the uncertainty of what comes after.
Mm-hmm. Any other further music notes?
Well, there's that wonderful organ and then whistling section that's so strange.
Yeah, the organ, there's just a teeny little bit of organ in here, and it's sandwiched in between some really beautiful piano.
An organ sandwich.
And
I had one of those in Paris when I didn't know what I was ordering. I was unpleasantly surprised.
that it was so delicious.
It-
But the organ fits in one of those really like super crazy wacky like bubbles of time that come in between those really like flowing and airy and ethereal moments that the piano is a really nice background on.
yes.
Also in those crazy moments, I just want to point out there's some seriously wonderful cowbell.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Wait, let's hear
it's
it.
in there.
Oh, that is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barrymore.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. He's got some really nice drumming in this in general, but that cowbell in there just adds a little bit of extra in there.
And then we have the saxophone that comes in, which it's really interesting to note that the same period that spawned a Passion Play is the same period that eventually spawns the sound of War Child. Because for me, that saxophone sound is for me the sound of War Child.
It's the first note you hear in War Child.
Exactly, and it's throughout the album.
Yeah,
a little, a bit. So hearing that sound here is like, oh yeah, of course they're all related. It's almost like they were the same band.
It's really cool knowing what we know about this album and the Chateau disaster.
Yeah.
It's really cool to listen to the sounds we're hearing now and see how they translate. See, like, up until now, each album you kind of hear like, I get that. I hear this from this album. But these are twins practically in terms of the way that they play some of these instruments.
Yeah, at least Irish twins.
Yeah, right. Or Scottish
twins.
Yeah.
That's where you were going to have twins,
Mm-hmm.
but you decided you couldn't afford one of them, so you gestated the other one an extra 9 months just to save on cost.
It takes a serious force of will.
Yeah.
But by the time you have that 18-month-old, it's like, you're ready. You're done.
Yeah. Whew. So, Nick, shall we talk about some of the lyrics here?
Yeah. I just final note on music that it's so wacky and kind of all over the place. It feels like a child's fantasy land, a candy-colored fantasy. If you gave a kid the power to create a story with their mind.
God forbid.
You give them a handful of pixie sticks and say, go to town, and you get this.
And it also reminds me a lot, and I think that it's because it is really related to modern jazz.
Sure.
They've moved from a kind of imitating, what's the word I'm looking for?
Imitation?
Imitation crab.
I love imitation crab. Rook loves imitation crab. He will eat a whole pack if we allow him, but we don't allow him. So
the safest catch. They've gone from a derivative style of playing quote unquote jazz. They're like, oh, we've heard this, and so we're gonna play and trying to make it sound like that.
Yeah.
To like this is jazz. This is like super. Like really modern, really kind of crazy jazz.
And what makes it so special in that regard is because they're not trying to.
No, they're following their own hearts.
Yeah. And it just turns out they've had jazz in their hearts the entire time.
They should get it removed immediately. It's a very dangerous condition.
Yep. And get the boiler fluid out of there while you're at it.
Yeah. It's amazing they survived this long. So, Nick, the lyrics.
This is Dante. This is the Inferno to me. This is Dante, and we will see Virgil later on.
Right.
This is straight up the Inferno to me.
Yeah. It also reminds me of Huckleberry Finn.
Really?
Yeah, the episode in Huckleberry Finn where his paw has locked him up in the cabin in the woods, and so he kills a pig and stages his own murder, and then they have a funeral for him. Then he's hiding in the rafters of the church.
Are you referring to a chapter in a book as an episode?
You can say an episode. Episode. Where do you think the word came from? The word episode didn't sprout out with TV and radio.
I understand that, but in current vernacular, it does not. Not worth the effort.
When have I ever subscribed to current vernacular? Nick?
Exactly. That's why I stopped. Yes, I do. I do know that part. Yeah.
So it's right. It's confronting your own death in one way or another. It's watching your own. It's literally watching your own funeral and being a bystander. And I love that the first word of it is, "Do you still see me even here?"
Mm-hmm.
Do you still see me even here?
Questioning like, what is my state right now? Kind of coming to terms with the fact that you're dead. Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We pick right up very early in his cognizance of his state.
Yeah. It's like Ghost.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, we don't see the
It's
actual
like the part of Ghost where he keeps trying to like
death, but
talk to people and be like, "Hey, I'm here," and they're like, "No, you're dead. You're a ghost. We can't see you."
we don't know you exist. But you're talking to me. No, we're not.
No. Just a fun geographical note, Nick. Fulham Road.
Uh-huh.
There was a rush along the Fulham Road.
Is a long road in London, also known as the A308, which runs kind of parallel to the Thames on the north side, and it passes directly by Brompton Cemetery in London, just on the outskirts of Chelsea, which is apparently one of the nicest cemeteries in England. So the fact that this gentleman is being buried at Brompton Cemetery speaks to the kind of life that he had. You don't get buried at Brompton if you're
Aqualung.
Well, definitely not. Or if you're a worker in a boiler fluid plant.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it also feels a little It's a Wonderful Life to me now that I think about it.
Wow, yeah.
Which is probably actually based on the Inferno. Now that I think
Probably
about that.
actually based on A Passion Play by Jethro Tull.
Oh, there it is, yeah. One after the no, and It's a Wonderful Life was before this.
Reverse based on A Passion Play by Jethro Tull.
They went ahead in time and then went back in time.
Those sneaky filmmakers.
Yeah, so this whole chunk is really Ronnie being at his own funeral. Is there was a rush along the Fulham Road? Is that implying that people were rushing to be at his funeral?
Ooh, interesting. Well, you could read it one way or the other. There was a rush to get there, or there was a rush on the road because it's a busy road.
Yeah.
And there was a hush in the Passion Play, sort of contrasting. Yeah, I don't know.
Although my friends as one all stand aligned, although their taxis came too late.
My friends as one all stand aligned, although their taxes came too late.
Does that mean they were late to the funeral, or it took them too long to get away from the funeral?
I would say that they were late getting to the funeral.
Oh, there was a rush along the Fulham Road, meaning on top of everything else, that made it difficult for them
traffic.
to get.
There was traffic, so all his friends were late.
Got it.
That's fun. That may not be the intended interpretation, but that is an interpretation which holds up in mine eye.
Seems pretty good. Such a sense of glowing in the aftermath, ripe with rich attainments, all imagined sad misdeeds in disarray, the sore thumb screams aloud.
Such a sense of glowing in the aftermath, ripe with rich attainments, all imagined, sad misdeeds in disarray, the sore thumb screams aloud.
Wow.
We are looking in a very broad and abstract way at Ronnie's life. the good, the bad, all imagined sad misdeeds? Is that saying that he imagined that they were bad and everyone else does not remember it that way? They don't interpret it?
I think it's a reference to the difference between how something seems in the moment and how something appears from the perspective of the remove of death.
Yeah.
You know, at the time, you beat yourself up about this thing that you've done, and it seems like your life is over and it's the worst thing that could have ever happened, or, you know, you can never forgive yourself. And then later on you're dead and you look at it and you're like, oh, it's just part of life. It's just life. I was just like being alive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, I imagine that death gives you a lot of perspective. If one could look at one's life from the perspective that Ronnie is, I would imagine that a lot of the hills and valleys would sort of smooth out.
Yeah, it's inevitably we live in the present and dwell in the past, and the further the remove, the more exaggerated the memory generally is.
Yeah.
And it'd be easy to see it with all with a clear eye and be like, okay, you know, it ultimately wasn't that bad. But if you just remember that one really terrible moment, how you interpreted it, not saying that anyone else really took it so poorly, you know?
Right. Well, it's interesting. It's like, I feel like the sore thumb screaming aloud is perhaps a metaphor for those alive whom he left. They are sore thumbs in the sense that they are currently feeling pain. They are alive and therefore are suffering, and he is dead.
Oh, yeah.
And can't.
Pain tells you, how do you know you're alive? I'm in pain, you know, like...
Right, exactly. I feel so alive!
Yeah, classic. That's exactly what I thought of. But isn't there a term sticking out like a sore thumb?
Of course, yes.
Is that just coincidence that he uses the term sore thumb here?
Maybe not. Maybe it's saying that he is the sore thumb because he is different than everyone else at the gathering because he's dead. But then at the same time, he wouldn't be sticking out because no one can see him.
Right.
I mean...
Oh!
What?
Oh!
Oh!
I think I know what it is.
What is
so,
it?
All imagined sad misdeeds, everyone's dwelling on memories of him, and there's like one person who's not just being quiet, one person who is screaming their anguish at the loss of Ronnie.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Probably some sort of a Frenchman.
Yeah? You think so?
Could be, or an Italian maybe.
They just show their passion in a different way, that's all.
Yeah. Not like the English, Nick.
Very buttoned up, keep calm, and do not show emotion.
Yeah. At least at Brompton.
Maybe.
Maybe there are more emotional cemeteries in London.
And then more the tail. Let's see. I think it's the end of the last of the lyrics that we come to is more proof that I think it's Dante's Inferno is. And who comes here to wish me well? A sweetly scented angel fell. She laid her head upon my disbelief and bathed me with her ever smile.
And who comes here to wish me well? A sweetly scented angel fell. She laid her head upon my disbelief and bathed me with her ever smile.
That is our
Beatrice.
That's our Beatrice, yeah.
Perhaps, although, you know, in the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, Beatrice is dead before Dante is, and goes before Dante, and is his inspiration to get to heaven.
Okay.
And then when he gets to heaven, he is firmly rebuked by her for all of his sins. Whereas this seems to be a living woman who is surprising him with the love that she's showing for him. It's almost like maybe a similar relationship, but But a bit reversed. It's almost like he's Beatrice and she's Dante.
Sure. And this could be his mom or his sister.
Oh, kinky.
There's nothing technically romantic in that.
I got you.
Yeah.
I jumped to conclude. I'm sorry.
I mean, you interpret it how you want, you sicko.
Now,
but
the band of gentlemen bound in leather on the
there
other
it
hand.
is.
There they are.
Yep.
And with a howl across the sand, I go escorted by a band of gentlemen in leather bound. No one but someone to be found.
Nothing but assless chaps and fringed vests.
It's actually his father. And his daddy.
That's in italics. If we had a transcript, daddy would be in italics.
Yes, thank you.
And anything else you want to talk about lyrically?
Yeah, I do want to just pull out no one but someone to be found. I think that's really a fascinating perspective on what it is to be a dead person, because as a dead person, you literally are no one. You are not there. You are not a person. And yet you can be found because, of course, people can visit your grave and find, quote unquote, find you. And a lot of these big cemeteries, that's why people go to them. It's like, oh yeah, I went to, forget the name of it, but there's the famous cemetery in Paris where you can go and see the grave of Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
That's like a thing. Or Marilyn Monroe, maybe.
Maybe.
Lots of people are buried there, lots of famous people, and you go and find them. But they're not there, they're dead. There's no one there.
Right.
So it's a lovely sort of like almost Zen koan like play on words and meanings.
Right. You are someone only to someone else.
Right. You are only to be found, but you are not a person there. You are not there.
Yeah, your existence and your value is solely dependent on someone else's thinking about you or interest in you.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Ooh, Nick.
And that is the end of that section. Lyrically, there's another, I think, a couple of minutes musically, which gives us some of that fun organ, some more of that really reedy, awesome saxophone.
Yeah.
And it just kind of winds down. Winds down into the next section, which will again pick up and be peppy and crazy and wacky.
Into the next layer of hell.
Possibly, yeah.
Going along with your Dante metaphor, although it is worth pointing out that in the Divine Comedy, Dante is not actually dead. He returns to the world at the end of it.
Right, fair enough.
But, it's like death.
Yeah.
In the sense that he's visiting all the dead people.
That he is in hell.
He is in hell, but
Yeah.
he's not quite dead.
He's not a resident. He's visiting that college to see if he wants to go there in the fall.
And it turns out he does not want to go there.
He actually
Yeah.
it was his fallback school. He applied for heaven and he actually did get in. So
He did.
thank
eventually.
you for the opportunity, Hal, but I'm going to go with my first choice.
They accept everyone. That's the thing.
They're very eager, and they'll help
Lots
you
of
get
space.
in too. A lot of financial aid there, a lot of support.
Their online community is actually pretty huge.
Free room, no board
internet
at all.
Is hell.
I think we just distilled it perfectly down. Hell is other people equals
Hell
the internet is
other
hell.
people's tweets.
Hell is other people's online personas.
Exactly. Join us for our other podcast, Dish Dante to Me, and just to finish that little segment up, his whole purpose of going on the journey is to live a better life back on Earth so that he can get to heaven ultimately.
That being Dante.
Dante, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Not Donnie.
Ronnie.
Not Ronnie, thank you.
Oh, wow. Ronnie Pilgrim.
Yeah.
Pilgrim.
Yeah.
So he's
Right,
he's
yes.
moving from one place to another. He's experiencing.
Yeah, he's on a spiritual
He's on a
journey.
pilgrimage. Yeah.
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 Welcome to class, Nick. Glad you could make it. I just want to pull out the
Referential naming. Come on. I love that.
Oh, yes. I just want to pull out the
Oh.
the title card, which is the silver cord.
Yes. Do you still see me even here? The silver cord lies on the ground.
The silver cord lies on the ground.
Right, in parentheses.
Yeah.
I want to posit that that is in reference to the Greek conception of the thread of life.
Absolutely.
That the three fates spin, measure, and cut. So his life thread, his silver cord, has been cut.
Absolutely.
It's also like a really nice kind of fun little joke as a musician to say a silver cord as if like there's a beautiful cord that's silver. And guitar strings are often coated in silver.
Yeah. Is there like, I know there are names for specific chords. Is there one that's like the silver chord? Do you know?
There's a chord called the silver-haired fox.
Is there seriously?
No.
I'm so tired. Just in general.
I don't know.
But
I don't know
your
why
shenanigans.
after all these years you still believe anything that I say. It's really incredible to me.
I'm just exhausted.
by our friendship.
The silver cord in metaphysical studies and literature, also known as the sutratma or life thread of the Antakarana, refers to a life-giving linkage from the higher self down to the physical body.
Boom.
There it is.
It's the umbilical cord from your mommy's consciousness to your baby body.
No, it's your own. You are your own mom in this scenario.
In which case, the umbilical cord is like the world
It's
serpent.
the
It just wraps
Ouroboros
around you.
of
It's the Ouroboros.
umbilical cords. The umbilicoros.
And on that note,
Yeah, oh yeah.
join us next week.
Next week, we are doing part 2, Act 2, you would say. We're doing Act 2 on side 1. It is the Memory Bank, a small but comfortable theater with a cinema screen the next morning.
Now, will that take us through the end of side 1, Nick?
That will, because I believe side 2 starts with the story of the hare.
Okay, great.
That's technically our interlude, but if I remember correctly, that is the start of side 2, not the end of side 1.
Gotcha.
Regardless, that's the end of the first portion of our story.
So big chunks here on this album.
Yes, this is going to be the next 14 minutes.
Wowee.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It is
Put an extra cookie on your
a
plate.
biggin. Yeah. Drink your emergency, carb up beforehand. It's going to be a biggin.
Yeah. Until next week, you can pour out your passions in the form of a review and 5-star rating.
Take a pilgrimage over to Apple Podcasts.
Don't die with the regret of having not reviewed your favorite Jethro Tull podcast. Talk Tull to me.
You don't want to see that silver cord lying on the ground and think, man, I never gave them a review. the greatest regrets.
Let us be your Dante through the fiery hellscape, which is all of the podcasts out there in the world.
Well, we'd be the Virgil to their Dante, right?
Ah, shucks, Nick. It's been a while since college.
Omen can be your Beatrice. I will be your Virgil.
Why do I always have to be Beatrice, Nick? Is it because I'm so pretty?
My hair's prettier than yours, so...
Until next week, I am Omen Sade.
And I am Beatrice.
We are
Feckless
very
Momes.
Feckless Momes. And this is...
Oh my dear Lord. And this is Talk Tull to Me.
Oh, it's so cold. Where am I? What is this dark forest all around me? I'm completely alone. Wait, who's that in the distance with laurels around his head? Who do I see?
I'm sorry, are you Dante? I'm supposed to meet Dante here.
Yes, I'm Dante Alighieri. I'm not sure what I'm doing here.
You didn't pick up a name tag when you first entered? Everyone's supposed to have name tags.
Oh, let me read Virgil.
Yeah, I'm Virgil. I'm here I'm your guide. You're late, by the way. We missed the bus. We have to walk now.
You looked a lot taller in your profile.
I mean, it was sunny. I had a low angle. It was, I was going for... Regardless. Here's hell. Here's purgatory. Here's
God.
Here's the Feckless Momes audio network.
What is it a proud member of?
Here,
I mean, what counts it as what? Tell me your wisdom.
That's where Talk Tull to Me lives. They're a proud member.
At the deepest level of hell.